So I'm Pam Helinek. I am the Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development and the Conservation Agent for the Town of Hudson. And I was the project leader for our downtown Riverwalk project, which is just a small section of the Assabet River, but it's actually been very popular because although the Assabet River runs right through our downtown, there was really very little opportunity for people to enjoy and experience the river because it was not, there was a sidewalk partway through, but there was literally a wall of invasive knotweed. You could not see the river from most of the walkway, so you didn't feel any connection. It also ended, I'll show you when we get to the other end, so that it was not actually ADA compliant because at the other end it ended in grass and it didn't connect up to parking or sidewalks, so that kept some people from enjoying it as well. And in addition, the original path went very close to the skate park, and apparently some people were a little uncomfortable walking so near the skate park. It can be loud, and maybe people were a little uncomfortable. So we had two goals for this project, and one was to make this path a friendly, welcoming connection to Hudson's most valuable natural resource and asset, which is the Assabet River, and the other was to help the river. The riverbank here is channelized. It was badly eroding in sections, and it was completely overgrown with invasive vegetation. So our other purpose was to do restoration work along the riverbank. And because this is right in our downtown, which has become a very popular destination, so it's a very public area, we were able to involve the public in 3 work days, get the community involved, provide some education about the ecological work that we were doing and that they were helping with. So that's
thank you.
What
a fantastic project.
So yes.
Oh yeah, I got to get a shot of this lovely entranceway.
The last thing we did, but now you can't. People didn't even know it was back here.
Yeah.
It was right back here behind a public parking lot, right by our downtown, and nobody knew it was here. Well, now you can't miss it.
Yeah.
So we had this vision. We had formed a steering committee. We had some CPC funds to do the initial design, and the vision was you walk under an arch and out onto an overlook, so that you could have views up and down the river. It's beautiful. And it's beautiful.
And you're very close to the wild and scenic, or maybe this is part of the wild and scenic.
This is not part of the wild and scenic, but we're very close, and we actually did get some funds from the wild and scenic group to do some of the restoration work. Now, we did a lot of native plantings after we removed the knotweed, but when they did phase 2 of the project, which was included putting in this work, they did dig up a bunch of the plants, and they are supposed to be putting them back this spring, so you won't see all the things that we planted, but we did do a lot of. So
why did they dug up some of the ones that the natives you planted?
They dug them up so that they wouldn't kill them.
Oh, when they were treating the knotweed, yeah.
Because what we had done was, we removed a lot of the knotweed in phases, and it's an ongoing project. It's a forever project.
Yes.
And then we used funds. Partly from the Wild and Scenic grants and partly from donations. The Conservation Commission chipped in some, and we also had some money left over from a couple of our grants to do plantings, and we used all volunteer labor for the plantings.
Right.
So we had one big volunteer day where people were pulling knotweed and other invasives, and then we had 2 more volunteer days where they were, basically pulling invasives that might have come up, but also doing planting, soil amendments, building habitat features. That kind of thing.
So I'd love you to go into detail about what you planted and what you did to the soil and how you what habitat you restored. I'd love
So
all
I
that.
can, yeah, so why don't we walk down. We planted, we did, and I can get you the details of exactly what things were mixed in with the soil, but it was like a fungal solution that, that was to help the soils and to help the native plants that we were putting there too.
Because it was all degraded.
It was this bank now, if you can imagine it, was channelized, eroding bank all the way down, and this was a wall of knotweed here, just a wall. You couldn't even see the river.
Right.
The wall was as tall as me. You would walk by, you'd barely know there was a river there. You'd have to kind of try to peer between it, and we've done this in phases. So the first phase, we had a grant. This was, we had this whole thing designed and permitted with CPC funds, and we didn't know how we were ever going to actually implement it. But then COVID happened.
Okay.
So we were able to get a lot of grant money. So the first one was, it was a Mass DOT grant that was called Shared Streets and Spaces.
Okay.
And the idea was to make places that people could enjoy being outside because of COVID. So we could not do very much restoration work under that grant. What we did was make it ADA compliant and add lighting so that people could do it. But we did have enough money at the end, and they approved us coming through and digging out the knotweed. So we went through and did an initial pass through and dug out a lot of knotweed.
Can you, sorry, you said CPC funding?
I'm sorry, Community Preservation Act, CPA funding.
Okay.
So I said CPC because we have a Community Preservation Committee that allocates the Community Preservation Act funds, but it's CPA funds. That was used for the design and permitting.
Okay.
And then we got a first grant of about $280,000 or so from the state. And I can show you the work we did there, but it was mostly the path and the lighting, but we also were able to dig out the knotweed, which was a good start. Then we had a couple of volunteer days, like as I said, where we had people come out, and we had people of all ages, and we had Girl Scout troops, and we had a lot of people out here, and they just pulled invasives. And then we followed up a couple times, and then in the fall, we hired an ecological landscaper who came with this foam herbicide that you can spray on the leaves of the plants that are coming up.
Okay.
So that it doesn't get in the water. It's very targeted, and that is a treatment that we're going to have to probably do every year forever.
Forever. Yeah.
Were there any natives here mixed in that you had to watch out for?
There really wasn't much
much
natives mixed in, but we did plant, and I'm afraid it's hard to see now, but we planted a lot of little shoots of little native trees and shrubs all along here. And I mean, I can get you a list.
Yeah,
of what
list
was
would be
planted.
super.
I don't have it with me right this second,
Yeah.
but I can get you that list of what was planted. And we had the soil amendments going in, and then so they would dig a hole, mix in the soil amendments that we had in a big bucket, and then plant and then tie a little ribbon on it so that we would know what we wanted to save and what could be pulled in the future.
And is this like town-owned land, or is this?
This is town-owned land. This is all town-owned land. So we didn't have to worry about permission so much as if we want to extend it that way eventually, then it will be private property, and that would be a little trickier.
Different, yeah.
Then in phase 2, we did a lot more of the restoration work. So like if you look at this area here, this was just a very badly eroded area because it had been channelized, but the way the flow of the water it had been digging into, and it was a badly eroded area. So like we rebuilt this whole area here to have a more natural flow of the way the water wanted to go, and to have a more naturally sloping bank.
Yep.
And there's a couple places along here where we did, where there were badly eroding areas that we rebuilt.
Did you do that work?
No,
Did you
we
get help?
hired.
You hired. Okay.
We hired a company that does a lot of ecological work.
Yeah.
They do like dam removal projects. They do all kinds of ecological projects.
Who was that?
Sumco. SUM capital CO. Sumco. They do a lot of ecological projects, and they did this work for us. So this was all knotweed. If we look closely, we can probably see some coming back up, but like every year, it's I don't even see any here. It's less because we keep at it.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
So that's. And we've also removed other invasives too besides the knotweed.
Yeah.
Bittersweet and
I'm sure. Yeah.
whatever comes up so our volunteer days were led by our consultant, who's an environmental landscaper. So he would give some education up front, explain the invasive, show people exactly what to pull so that they would pull the right things. Stems we kept, but roots had to be bagged up so that they didn't reestablish themselves. This is it's an interesting little stretch of the river here. There's Hudson was historically.
Are these little native trees here? Yeah. What's that? Pin cherry, maybe?
Yeah, I think these
and maybe
these may have been some of our plantings.
Oh wow.
So Hudson was historically a shoe town, and there were all shoe factories all along the river. So actually, there are places in the riverbank where you can still find old shoe leather that has gotten embedded in the riverbank.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is kind of. It's an interesting little stretch. This is we put this up. This is we put up several habitat features, and I never remember which is which. So let's see. I brought.
What's that for? Is that?
I can see which was which. So this one here is a swallow shelf.
Lovely.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to attract, swallows. Here's another area that was very badly eroded that we rebuilt to allow the river to turn a little bit here and to slope down.
So what do you mean? So it was sweeping in here and eroding away.
So this was like a straight channel.
Yes.
But it was eroding into the river because the river wanted to come in here. It didn't want to go straight.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to.
So is the idea that like if the river gets really high, this sort of like redirects it back into the?
Well, what it does is when it keeps the river from cutting into the shoreline and causing more and more erosion into the river. Okay. So we're trying to avoid erosion, and one of the things that we did try to do down there, which you'll see, is make places that kind of establish places for people to walk down to the river.
Oh, I see.
Oh, that's what this is, rather than have it totally vertical.
People just walk down any old place and
Yeah.
all this.
That
there
makes
are
sense.
specific places that they can walk down the river.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because people are going to walk down to the river.
Right.
Yeah.
So we tried to make it so that they would all walk down in the same place, and then the rest of the bank could be healthier.
Yep. Okay.
Excellent.
They have that at Walden too, where it's like little step downs. Yeah.
We put up a couple of educational signs. So we have a history sign here and an ecological sign down there. So here's our history sign.
That's great.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
This is the remains of I think it was a bridge that went across there 10 years ago. DPW not to mow that area, which then you have to had signs up actually because people complain. Oh, DPW's not mowing.
Oh,
Look at
right,
this
yeah.
mess. No, it's not a mess.
It's not. Yeah.
It's a restoration area.
That's a great
that
point.
we want to go natural. Now we have little signs in there, and they're all gone. So I guess we need to put more permanent signs in because things disappear.
So did it get mowed
Looks like
anyway?
It looks like it did.
Things, right?
It looks like it did get mowed.
Yeah.
But it,
But it's once a year is probably all right.
yeah, I think once a year, especially now, where a lot of the native stuff would be coming up. This is one of the areas where the original path just went there, right along the edge of the skate park. And we added this path here.
So you were adding path. So you lost a little bit of riverbank by adding path, but you made it attractive so that you could open it up
attractive and
for
more
the people
welcoming.
in the town. That's right.
We added another little overlook area here. This is not so. It's funny because it doesn't seem that different, but that one over there, because it extended out over the water, I had to go through a year-long process of getting a Chapter 91.
Oh, and what is that?
Permit. Chapter 91 permit is a state permit for things that you do on navigable waters. Docks and overlooks. Now that barely juts out, and this water is barely navigable.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to, we wanted to do it correctly.
Sure. Yeah.
So we got the Chapter 91. This one, because it does not jut out over the water, but it's within the banks, I didn't have to get a special permit for this one.
Did you have to do anything on the other side of the bank, or is that all private?
That's all private.
Okay.
That's all private. That is an old mill building that's now being used for storage. I think every so often they talk about turning it into apartments or condos, but nothing's happened yet. But that's private property.
Okay.
Here's another area that we rebuilt because it was kind of collapsing, into the water. So we rebuilt this area.
It also means you get some sort of wet plants, wet soil plants
Some wetter
down
soil
there.
down there, yes. And then here, we did do some invasives removal in this area. There's another one of our habitat features. That one is a bat box.
Oh.
And somewhere around here is a bluebird song box.
Well, there might have been one on that walk right
there.
But this would be fantastic a little later in the year. This has got all sorts in it, I'm sure.
Yeah, so this is...
Did you have signs here too, like this is being kept natural?
No, this area was always kind of, well, mostly with invasives, but it was always kind of just left alone over here. So the restoration work, that was phase 2 of the project, and actually this path here was also phase 2 of the project, and that was done with ARPA funds.
With what?
ARPA funds.
How do you spell that?
That's ARPA, that's American Rescue something Act. Anyway, preservation. Something. Anyway, it was just a lot of federal money that went out during the pandemic to help towns, and we had $400,000 earmarked to finish this project, so we were able to do the restoration work, this path, the overlooks, and that big archway. All that we did with that funds, because that didn't have a specific, like the Mass DOT funds were specifically for making it easier for people to be outside, but the ARPA funds were for anything we wanted that had to do with the Riverwalks.
Yeah.
So we had more flexibility. So yeah, we added this area. The benches were donated. People love to donate benches and put, plaques on it.
Yeah.
So the benches were all donated.
This is the bat box.
And that's our bat box.
Everybody just using it.
I don't know if there's any bats in it, but it was meant to be a bat box.
Yeah.
But then also some like that's here. Right. Like this pile here this was meant to be a habitat feature because there are a lot of little critters who will want to nest in piles. So both of these two piles were actually constructed on purpose as habitat features.
Okay.
And some of these big roof walls that are both in the water and on land, those were also left there on purpose too.
Okay.
As habitat features.
Interesting.
And I can get you exact details of what we planted and what soil amendments we used, and and the details of the habitat, because I can just ask our consultant to remind me.
What a lovely spot this is.
But this is, which is why we wanted to. And I see people sitting here and enjoying
Yes.
the spot. And that coming through that way, this is Danforth Brook, which is a channelized brook. Comes all the way through. It's dammed up there. It was used originally. There's a big. It was dammed up to form a waterfall, and it was used to power the lumber company, which is there. And there's still the dam is still there, although they don't use it for power anymore. So this brook comes into the Assabet River here. So it's just a very pretty spot where you get the two. And the water's very high right now because there's been so much rain.
Do you, so the dam's still in use? I mean, not in use, but it's still there?
It's still there.
Has the town talked about removing it, or does that?
It's a privately owned dam.
Yeah,
and the people are struggling with it, honestly. You know, they should remove it. It costs so much money in permitting and work, but the state has made certain requirements on the dam that are also very expensive for them to meet, and they are struggling with this dam, but it's privately owned. So,
It is beautiful what you've done with this.
thank you.
Really impressive.
I was pleased because we were working on our open space and recreation plan, and when we sent out surveys to people and asked, like, you know, what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, what do you like in Hudson? We had a lot of people say that they really liked the Riverwalk, so that made me happy. Because,
I think so. So did you get a lot of input from the public about what to do?
Well, we did.
About
so
what people wanted?
So this bridge, I'll just finish my little tour, and then I can talk about that. This bridge here was existing, but the end of the original Riverwalk, it ended right here. And this was it. And then this was just grass. There was a gazebo there. There was the splash pad, and there was the playground, but nothing was connected.
Yep.
And nothing was connected to the bridge or the walk. So, you know, obviously anybody with a wheelchair, with a walker, even with a stroller, it was just not accessible. So what we did during the first phase is we added connections in actually 3 different places to sidewalks and parking. The reason this area is a different color is because it's floodplain here, so we did permeable pavement. So that's permeable pavement. The darker pavement there. We added these connections here to the gazebo, and also behind the gazebo, which is a pretty area too that I'll show you. And then I can talk about our public process, because we did have a public process. So none of this was here before. There was just the gazebo and grass. So we added this trail around here, and we put these steps in on purpose, again, to give people access to the river. They can use this also as a kayak or canoe launch if they want to. And the thing was, you know, rather than have people go down all over the place and cause all kinds of erosion, they use these steps. And the steps are really popular too. I see little kids all the time, you know, on the steps throwing sticks in the water or whatever. And you can often see, you know, ducks. There's a heron that hangs around here. Sometimes you see the heron. So it can be a fun place to watch. This is our other educational sign, which talks about the ecology of the Assabet.
Was there any like legal hurdles, like with having such close access to the water, like any, you know, legal stuff, or not really?
You know, people could always walk down to the
Right.
river and fall in.
That's true, yeah.
We didn't have a fence around the river, so
Okay, yeah.
the river was always accessible to people.
Okay.
As far as I know, we have not had a problem with people falling in. I've never heard of anybody falling
yeah.
in. And then we added this little section around here. There's still a lot of invasives around here, but
Save something for this year,
Yeah.
right?
there's another area that we did some riverbank restoration work over
Oh
here by
yes,
the bridge.
yes.
The reason this little area here is raised is because there's a little wetland area underneath it, so we had to go. We couldn't disturb the wetlands, so we went, over it.
Oh, look at this! It's a mini bridge to
It's like
go
a
over
little bridge.
over the wet soils. Interesting. Ah.
Yeah, and then this wraps around there too to the gazebo, past all the playground stuff and to the parking on the other side. So that's our little tour. Like I said, it's just a tiny little section that we did the restoration work
That's great.
on. But it didn't make a massive difference because before, like I said, it was all knotweed. It was a wall. It was taller than me. You'd have to search to figure out if there was actually a river there or
Yeah.
not. And now we've got these wide open views and overlooks, and we can really connect the river to the downtown, to its history, to its ecology, and people can come down here, where they can. So Hudson's got a lot of very popular restaurants now. They can eat dinner and then go for a walk along the river. It's
Yeah.
all lit at night because all those little bollard lights are lit.
Huh?
And the arch lights aren't working great right now, but we're on that. And the arch lights up at night. So, and the reason those bollards are these low downlit lights is so that we don't get the light pollution on the water.
Sure, yeah.
So these are just aimed down, just
Yeah.
enough to light up the path. So we did have, when we did the initial design, we had a steering committee that was made up of some town staff and then members of the community. The downtown business improvement district was involved, and some other volunteers and interested people. The residents of Hudson were on the steering committee. We met a number of times and talked about the design. People came up with the ideas for things like the archways, the overlooks, the path around, all those things. And then we did have some outreach events. We did have like a presentation where not that many people came, I will admit, but we had a handful of people come and talk about the different ideas. But the other thing we did was that Hudson has a bunch of the downtown Hudson. They do a lot of nice events. So every year around Christmas time, they have a big event where they close down Main Street on the weekend, and all the stores have specials, and tons of people come out. So we had volunteers from the steering committee as well as our consultants, and we had like areas marked, and we would talk to people about the project and ask what their priorities would be if they had any ideas, and we did get a lot of public input. So and all of the public input we got from the steering committee and from those events were incorporated in our design.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
yeah, so there was a public process.
Yeah. It's transformed the function of the river, hasn't it, in Hudson?
It really, people out there walking their dogs, or like I said, the children will be playing by, because you get families here in the summer. That's a splash park.
Oh, okay.
So there's a splash park and there's a playground there, but the kids love to go down by the steps and be near the water.
Yeah.
You know, obviously supervised by their
Yeah.
parents. But. Oh, and Oars. Do you know Oars?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. we
Oars,
do.
the organization for the Assabet, Sudbury, and Concord River. They have a summer program for kids that they have run the last few years down at the Riverwalk.
Oh,
And they
okay.
incorporate the work that we did in the Riverwalk. They incorporate that into their educational program for the children. So sometimes, lunchtime I walk down here a lot just to check out how everything is. And it's fun in the summer because all the kids with the oars instructors are down here.
Oh, that's wild. That's awesome.
So that's nice. I'm glad people are taking advantage of it.
Yep.
So it's small, but because it is in the downtown, and because our downtown has become very, very popular, a lot of people do get to enjoy it. We have visions of extending it that way, getting easements through the private property and extending it that way. And also the Assabet River Rail Trail is right 1 block down there. So we have visions of somehow connecting it. If I don't know exactly how, maybe it'll just be through signage or whatever, but to try to connect it to the Assabet River.
And so, I think you're very excited about this. Who's in charge of spraying the knotweed, or just sort of maintaining the invasives out?
So the Conservation Commission has. Well, we still have a little money left in our ARPA funds that we can pay, but other than that, the Conservation Commission has been paying for the consultant to come back, the ecological landscaper to come back each fall and do the treatment. And because there's less and less, the expense is less and less each year, because if you keep after it, then you weaken it a lot and less comes up. But you can't ever stop.
Right.
Because it's just, it's very invasive and it will always want to come back.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is very thought-provoking, isn't it, Abby?
I know.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do.
So what I can do is I can send you, if you want, like I said, the detailed list of what was planted, what soil amendments were used, what habitat features we added. I can email you those lists.
That'd be lovely. Thank you so
sure,
much.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, it is amazing to see.
And I have the pictures.
Oh, could you send us some of your photographs?
I just tried to get an idea. I searched for a before picture when it was all knotweed.
Yes.
I didn't have great pictures of
Honeysuckle.
it. But there was all invasives, and then here's a picture of when we first dug it out and it was all clear, and then here's our picture of one of our volunteer days.
Yes.
When they just lined the bank. We had like 35 volunteers all show up and just line the bank and pull things out. And then this is what it looked like. This is what it looked like when they treated it with the little foam that they put on the leaves. This little blue foam. I guess they make it blue on purpose so that people know not to touch it. And then it gets absorbed into the leaves and then down into the roots.
Yeah.
So I just brought those.
And they
to
know
show
what
you.
they've sprayed already.
Right. Well, yeah, and they know what they've sprayed already.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so you can keep this if you want. And then this is just.
Have you got? Could you send any chance of getting some of these by email?
Oh, I can email you.
It'd be
all
lovely.
Of this.
They would
Sure.
add it to the blog.
Yeah, these
that's
are
right.
just. I just printed these out, but I can just email them to you.
Yeah.
And I suspect that other box was the one that was on.
Yeah.
So we'll have to replace that at some point.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
It's so. It'll look completely different in a month's time anyway.
Right,
It's so attractive, the whole layout and the curve of the paths and everything. It's just a very attractive place to be, isn't it? Now,
It is. And
as well as being beneficial to the wildlife
Yeah,
and
and those
everything.
we had the two goals. Goal one,
Yeah.
make it welcoming and attractive so that people could feel connected to the river in the downtown.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
two, make the river healthier
Yeah.
ecologically.
Yes.
And it seems like
So-
the third would, unintentionally or not, would be, I assume it's now like a destination and local businesses.
Yeah, the
know,
business
it's thriving
improvement. Yeah,
more.
they love it. And
Yeah.
in fact, when we weren't sure we were going to have enough money to complete the archway, the downtown businesses were going to chip in
Oh,
and
okay.
help us out. It turned out we did have enough money to do it, but if we hadn't, they had already committed to helping us out with
great.
funds.
Isn't that lovely? I mean, basically, because there would be an economic benefit as well as the fact that,
Oh,
that
they
it's
were
an
so
aesthetic
excited
benefit.
about the
Yeah.
river, and they had several members on our steering committee as well, and one of them was the one who had suggested the arch to begin with. So they really wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see that arch.
Yeah.
So that is
Yeah.
obviously not an ecological thing, but like I said, people didn't know it was here before, and now everybody
Yeah.
knows it's there. It's kind of fun for me because I work there's town hall across the street. I work up on the third floor, so I can look out the window and see the arch. And
that's
in the
great.
winter, when it gets dark early, I can see it lit up. That's how I know the lights aren't working properly, but we
yeah,
are
yeah.
going to fix that. And there will be, I have to actually get in touch with the contractor who, even though the work is officially done, he is obligated to come back and do plantings of
Okay.
those native plants, because they did, when they did the work, remove some and also, inadvertently just destroy some with the equipment and the people stomping around. So
Yeah,
they,
okay.
they're
So-
going to be there. So if you come back, as
Yeah.
you said, in a few months and just walk along there, you should
Yeah.
see some, hopefully,
Yeah.
healthy-looking native plantings coming up.
So some of the some of the construction was done after you did some of the plantings. It sounded like.
Yes,
because
phase
you can't
two.
get.
So we
Yeah.
I call them phase 0. I call the design phase
Yep.
with the CPA money. Phase 1, I call the Mass DOT shared streets and spaces, when we did the initial paths and lighting and dug out that first bunch of knotweed, and we did the educational signs. And then I call it phase 1A with the Suasco Wild and Scenic River money, where we bought a bunch of native plants and we had the volunteers plant them all. But then we unexpectedly got another $400,000 in ARPA funds. So then we did phase 2, which included the overlook, the new path that went around the back of the skateboard,
I see.
and
Yeah.
in the process of working it all in that area, a lot of the plants we had done
Yep.
with the Suasco money were in the way.
Yep.
So the
Okay.
contractor, who was an ecological contractor, did remove a bunch of the plants and hopefully kept them alive to bring back.
Yep.
But they do have a commitment to
Right.
replace a bunch of those
Right.
plants.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got to come back, see
You gotta
them
come
throughout
back,
the
yeah,
year.
come for lunch and
Yes.
then walk along the river
Yeah.
walk.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's a dinner destination. I'm coming back.
Hudson, yes, Hudson has become our
Yeah.
main street is very, very popular with restaurants. We've
Yes.
got our own brewery,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and it is the destination on,
Yeah.
on weekend nights.
Yeah.
It's sometimes hard to find
Parking, yeah.
Yeah. This is outrageously impressive. Thank you so much.
Thank you.